or number lock or whatever it's called.
What? Why is it? Why can't I sign in from the app? I think that's annoying. So it won't let me sign into the YouTube chat.
Are we live?
Yeah, we're live, but I can't sign in from my streaming software.
That's okay. I've got it up on mine. That's fine. Yeah, no troubles.
Yeah, it's just you'll be able to see the stream chat then. We're live.
Yeah, we're live. Yeah.
But the my software doesn't like interacting friendly. It's like open the web browser. I'm like, I don't want to open the web browser. I'm using the actual app. Like I should be able to anyway. Sound like an old person ranting, which is probably not far from the truth. Let's be fair. All right, can you just speak just so I can make sure my
testing.
Oh look, yeah, the bar's moving. Good. All right, well we're live and we're doing stuff. And is that you're probably the viewer in the chat? Funnily enough.
Yeah, that would be me. So I'm just going to really quickly share the link,
publicly,
the live link onto socials.
Cool. I'm gonna test that card letter's working. Yep, we're good. Magical.
And I'll do it to Insta and Facebook, and then that's pretty much us done.
Sweet.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Done. Okay.
All right, and it's 180.
180. Yep. The magic of live.
The magic of live. Welcome everybody to episode 180 of the You Can't Comp This NBA Trading Card Podcast. We are your hosts, Adam, Amy, and Russell Gibson. And we're a bit early today because we're live on YouTube. Well, we're always live on YouTube, but we've invited some of the listeners to pop along and say hello and ask some questions.
Absolutely. Try and get a bit more listener interaction happening.
Some real-time engagement.
Yeah, it's been a while since we've tried to do this, so we'll see how it goes.
It'll be, it's an experiment. We do it with some short notice. We'll see. We are rapidly approaching our first goal on YouTube. I thought that's probably worth a bit of a shout now that we're rapidly approaching that 150 subscribers.
150. Yep.
So we haven't been sort of plugging our YouTube for very long, so it's nice to see a bit of engagement there. And yeah, once we hit that 150, we'll be giving away a prize.
Still got it safely in my cupboard.
Haven't been tempted to open it. I've subscribed.
I do get tempted.
I've subscribed.
Oh, so if you win it, does that mean I have to give you the box?
I might be nice and give it to another subscriber.
Sounds outrageous, really, doesn't it? Like,
yeah. It sounds like a bit of
Razzes or something.
Insider trading.
That's right.
Do you know how I'm set? You can see what I'm putting down for a segue, right?
Alrighty, let's just get straight into it. So I think basically how today's show will go is we've got our own show.
Yeah.
So we've got heaps of stuff laid out, and if no one comes and chats with us, that is totally fine. But if people do jump in, we'll answer all their questions. In the meantime, we're going to talk about a article that was put online and it was written by Chris Golick.
Yes.
That's the best way to really talk about it, isn't it?
Yep. I was tagged in this a couple of times, funnily enough.
I'm not surprised. As much as you love regulation, this young man is speaking your language, I do believe. It was also brought to my attention by Mac_card collection. So we spoke about him a few times already online. So really good follow on Instagram. Look, I think I'm just going to turn this over to you, Ad. You know, we'd strongly suggest everyone go out and read the article. The article is entitled, "Is Regulation Needed in Sports Cards?" And what were your main takeaways from it, Ad?
Look, I went through the article briefly. It's no secret that I am a fan of regulation within this lovely hobby that we have. And I think the more that there's sort of financial stakes and such, that we need to regulate certain aspects of the hobby. I think we've seen as a whole in the past, people get burnt in a big way. And I've seen the hobby be exploited a lot. And my thought is, and I'm sure it's shared obviously in this article as well, that we are open to exploitation, and there is a need for some kind of regulatory controls to protect people.
Yeah, sure.
So that's my initial summary, my initial 2 cents. I think the amount of parallels that are drawn between sports cards and we use it as it's not a literal connection, but a parallel between trading stocks and trading cards.
Yeah.
Now, on the stock market, and as I was joking before with regards to winning the Box of Revolution, insider trading, that's not on in the stock market. For very good reasons, it's regulated.
Well, they try to reduce
they try to. I understand that. But it's not like an open market where people can just push narratives to drive prices. And I think we're open to a lot of exploitation in our hobby.
So I think we should just really quickly say good afternoon to James and also to Al. Hope you're well, guys. And Al's first comment is that open to exploitation is an understatement. So, and I think that's what this article is really getting to. So I think you've really tapped into that really well. Just to quickly summarize, the analogy he was trying to make was a comparison between if you're gambling at Nevada and opening sports cards boxes, what are the different controls in place? So the analogy he was putting down was that if you're playing a poker machine, you win a jackpot, but then the casino says, well, no, we're not going to pay it out. There's actually a high body that you can escalate that to. They'll come down and give you that. And so that there isn't that same overseeing, regulating body with basketball cards. It's Panini is self-regulate. So if there is a problem with the product that you receive, you have to then appeal to Panini to hopefully they'll make you whole. And look, they do have a reasonable system where you can send in evidence of not getting what you should have gotten out of a box, or whatever way you want to say that. But at the same time, what you do get back from them is often very minor or very small. And and maybe the big one that now it's sort of coming to my head now is the redemption process, where the redemptions expire after a set period of time, and then also too there's no guarantee that they'll be filled. And so this is the big one for me in terms of regulating something. Either they're giving out points or they're giving you out an alternative source of replacement card, and often that isn't what keeps people happy. There has been some really good instances where actually people have gone overs on it, but there's also those terrible instances of when people go under. The next thing that he talks about in there is that, can you compare it to gambling, which I think is a whole other conversation altogether, and I feel like we could do an entire podcast on itself. But is that something that when we're talking about regulation and we're talking about making sure this is a safe space for everybody, how do you change that definition of gambling to luck, I suppose, or with something else? What's your thoughts around that, Ad?
Yeah, there's I think it's a very fine line, and I've always sort of alluded to the fact that it is a type of gambling. When you're going into a Raz, so it depends what you're buying, but you're buying into the chance of winning a major prize, right?
Yeah.
And realistically, it's a fine line between gambling as in at a casino versus a raffle. Do you know what I mean? Like, there are forms of you're putting in for something of monetary value. So you're paying money and you're expecting something of monetary value in return.
Yeah.
Sure, you're not getting money in return. But
and I think that's probably why at the end of the day it's not considered gambling. Because you're not getting those instant returns, you're not getting the cash back.
Yeah.
And in the article, he speaks about people getting life-changing money. So the big one that happened in the last 24 hours is that Filth Bomb Breaks have allegedly pulled the one-of-one Steph Curry gold vinyl rookie card.
Okay.
So, if we're talking about, life-changing money on that, like that could be a $5 million card at one point. I think that's the type of card where that could go for insane money. Okay, maybe 5 million is a bit of a crazy number, but let's say 3 million AUD, which is what, 1.8, or a bit more than that in USD at the moment. So that's not a crazy thing to say. At one point, that card will get to that.
But even when you get into the tens of thousands of dollars, that's serious
Yeah,
money.
sure. Yeah,
Do you know what I mean?
Let's keep it like that. I just thought that was a good
the
example
live
because that
chat.
was
Oh, I
something
agree
that
completely.
popped up recently. Yeah,
But
yeah,
these aren't. I'm spending $2 on a packet of cards and I might get a $50 card.
yeah,
These are things. These are pieces of cardboard that have a supply demand factor to them. Let's be clear on that.
yeah,
Where if the demand for that particular player is high enough that we're talking tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars.
yeah,
Now, I understand that Panini would like to regulate the way they deal with their own product, but I think the overarching side of this hobby is that we're not talking about $50 cards. We're talking about a secondary market here where there are tens, hundreds of thousands of dollars, and even millions of dollars being exchanged.
yeah, sure.
Like, you go back to the golden auctions show on Netflix when they're talking about how many billions of dollars go into trading cards.
They're focusing on the really big.
You're talking
stuff,
about
yeah.
this kind of turnover, and you're also saying there's no regulatory body to actually, because this is it. What was and I'll use Golden as the example. All the photo matching, and then we go back to our lovely friends. Was it one?
He's one of one.
But it is. It's our social media regulatory body with card porn. Do you remember that? Like, let's build trust, and then we authenticate things that are not real, and that's millions of dollars of fraud. Like, if that doesn't demonstrate a need for a regulatory control on this hobby, then and I'm not saying regulate every single Facebook marketplace or, do you know, like where the little collectives of people are running $10, $20 sales on their cards.
Yeah.
But I think there's got to be some level of control when it comes to a significant, not a substantial amount, a certain significance in the value of a piece of cardboard.
Yeah. So let's just dip back into the comments a little bit here. So we got Sean Alloway from Liftoff Cards. How are you, mate? And the long wait when dealing with them. So that's in regards to the redemptions that we're talking about before. And then Al's back in the comments again. So it is indeed gambling, despite Russ hating me for saying it all the time. The link between gaming loot boxes and problem gambling has been robustly verified, according to a report carried out by researchers at the universities of Plymouth and Wolverhampton. And card boxes are no different. So, look, I do agree with that, but probably like where I'd push back a little bit here is that I think if we overly regulate the hobby, I think it'll take a little bit of the fun out of it.
I agree.
I think the other part of it too is anytime you implement regulation and controls, that also costs money, which was, going to be coming from our pockets. So how they pay for this, that's something else I'd be interested to, hear about. But also too, it's like, so maybe we use loot boxes as a good example of that. So there was a pretty decent pushback on that recently because, a lot of money was being spent on the loot boxes in games, and then people didn't even know what the probabilities were, coming out of it. So I'll use the one that's the most in my mind because I'm playing a fair bit of FIFA at the moment. So when you click on the packs, it actually tells you now what the percentages are. So you're hoping to hit this card if you buy this particular pack. It's a less than 1% chance of buying it.
Yeah.
So then you're kind of like, well, actually, I don't really want to take a 1% chance to buy this thing up. I'm not going to buy it. I'm going to try and get the card in a different way. So I think if you then apply that back to trading cards and even Pokemon, I think we mentioned this at the same time now too, because it's the whole thing. Like, we don't want to overly regulate this thing that is kind of like pretty fun for us all to enjoy. At least know what your odds are of, getting that particular card, whether you do think it's worth opening that box or just going onto the secondary market and actually just buying the card that you want. I think that's the big one for me. I think so. But, and we're going to be seeing after you go.
Yeah. Well, I think you've hit the nail on the head with a certain point. Transparency is the big one. We're not trying to regulate the hobby out of existence, I guess is probably my term. But what we're trying to do is have that level of safety and security that what we're entering into, we're fully educated and aware of what we're buying into. if I buy, and we'll say a loot box, a repack, whatever it is, if I
Well, you
don't
can
know what
choose
the
whether to
odds
be
are,
educated or not, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
if the option isn't there to tell me what I'm buying into,
Yeah.
I think that's unfair because you don't know if the repack run is 100 packs or 2,000 packs.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now
Sure.
that
Yeah.
changes whether or not I want to purchase that product,
Which is the
and I
perfect
think it's
segue for
the
us to talk about
option.
our sponsor, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
We leverage this quite well. But yeah, like understanding what you're purchasing, having the information. We don't have to force everybody to read the terms and conditions.
Mm.
However, we should have that information if we want it.
Mm.
Like it should be there and available. And I think it's deceptive if they don't offer that information.
Yeah.
And I think something as simple as that, the transparency, takes that loot box, a gambling aspect away. Yeah, I do think there's different levels of regulation required in different zones as well. Like there's loot boxes, there's sealed product, and then there's a secondary market. And I think there's different types of regulation needed in all of them.
Mm.
But some oversight in some capacity.
Yeah,
I
I think I'd probably prefer oversight or some level of control as opposed to like a true regulating body. I just think
Yeah.
if we do regulate it, I think that'll slow things down and might make the hobby a little bit cramped. And, there are some fun things about having a relatively unregulated hobby too, if that makes sense. Like there's
But
maybe a bit more opportunity for.
I suppose if there's regulation, there's the opportunity. There's a level of safety and protects you from exploitation. I.e., like if you regulate, there are consequences for. Like imagine if it was actually against the law to provide a counterfeit card, and there are fraud.
Yeah, I mean, there is
laws.
okay, actually, I've thought of the perfect example, actually, what I would say. So, for example, I wouldn't want regulation per se, but I would like control. So, for example,
Mm-hmm.
there can't be just one company making all the cards. Because I feel like some of the bad stuff that Panini did was because they had no competition. They just do whatever the hell they wanted to. If it was Panini and Fanatics going head to head, I think that would be a really good control. Because it'd be like, they would have to, relatively keep their print runs under control. They would
Yeah.
have to really be competitive with their product, with their quality control too. Do you know what I mean? I think that
Yeah,
would be
spot
something
on.
that would be really good. But
Yep.
that's up to the NBA to to put that out there. So Surly Sports Cards, I hope you're well, mate. Thank you so much for jumping in. The language on the boxes has become pretty laughable. No hard facts, just you may hit or it can contain. 100%. Yeah, that sucks. Like
Oh,
if
like
you
patches and stuff like that as
yeah,
well.
if you want to get 3 hits out of a box, there should be 3 hits in the box.
That's
That's
it.
exactly what it should be. Yeah.
What happened to the good
So,
old days of 1 in 36 packs? Basically one per box.
yeah.
Yeah.
Adam, I'll let you have the final say onto this. And then listeners who are currently in the chat, we're going to go to a quick break after Adam's final thought. Put some conversation pieces or a topic for us to talk about in the comments. And when we get back, we will talk about it.
Yeah, I think overall, I think some kind of regulatory body, and I don't know if I'm gonna segue and end up opening a can of worms here, but we've talked about Panini being the only regulatory body. I'm gonna give you 3 letters right now to actually consider about how this is becoming a monopoly. PSA. If the only body that is the controlling authority on grading is PSA, is that going to be a problem down the track? Because we are giving them all of the power at the moment.
No, I think at the moment, actually, grading's a good example of how you have open competition and then you've got the different companies doing different niches and then pushing each other forward.
I feel like PSA is still the PSA has got too much control. Is probably my
Yeah,
thought
sure.
on that at the moment, and that's the
Because
way
they're
they're
so
headed.
dominant. Definitely.
Correct.
Hey, do you know what would be so funny if the regulating body was Panini and they had to come in and like audit Fanatics?
Oh my god, that would be the best, wouldn't it? No. Upper Deck, no, don't let Upper Deck do it, Jesus.
All right, let's go. Let's go to our first break ad. I think this is a perfect time to go to Melbourne Cardtel. Go to www.melbournecardtel, spelled tel.au. Once you get to the website, you will find a whole range of products for your viewing and purchasing pleasure. NFL, AFL, UFC repacks, all of them come with a full checklist so you know exactly what you're buying into, as we were just discussing. Very soon, the El Chapo range is coming out, which is going to be a higher end repack from them, which is something new that they've been working on for a little while. Also, too, they sell GTI card accessories, so one touches, penny sleeves, top loaders, yada yada yada. Now, the most important thing is when you go to checkout, use the promo code COMPTHIS10 and you'll get a 10% discount on everything that you go on and purchase there. Thank you to Darren and the Cartel team for supporting us. We really appreciate it. Adam, we are back. How are you, buddy?
I'm great. I'm great. I just responded to the chat, just saying, well, so many yeah, nah, yeah answers. And that is literally what all card companies seem to be.
All right. Have we got any questions from the listeners that we can talk about?
No, it's more Al going on about Panini. So
okay. Well, in that case,
no guarantees. It's just no. The whole chat is like the last few comments are very much a don't. The non-committal stance when it comes to card companies saying you may get this, you might get that. We can't guarantee anything, but there's a chance. Blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Actually, no. We've got CSG's potential bright spot. That is real, big company that I think market share has potential to grow. Was the last comment.
Alrighty, so why don't we do a bit of a segment, which is we put something up to say, what would you like to hear about? So why don't we talk about some of the topics? Why don't we start with Josh Smith? I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on Miles McBride. I feel like he's had a real jump this season. Also, if Cat has had any movement in the market since his trade to the Knicks. So I think, why don't we do that? Why don't we talk about Miles McBride?
Yep.
And then also, why don't we really quickly touch on Karl Anthony Towns?
Cool.
Should we start with Karl Anthony Towns? I think that's the easier one to talk about, Ad.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's go to Cat.
Yeah. All right. Where are you at with Karl Anthony Towns?
He's got a better spot in New York. He's enjoying basketball. It's lovely. It's good to see. I don't think he's got, as far as his play goes, I think he's finally found a nice place to play.
Yeah.
As far as the hobby goes, I think the ship's sailed.
Oh, really?
I think he is what he is. Like, I just... Do you see people jumping on board now and there being a crazy hype train for Cat? Or...
So I feel like we did talk about him in the last couple of weeks, so we can just really quickly recap this. He was the number one overall pick. Mm-hmm. There was, some huge prices that have been spent on Cat. All time, he was up to $1,400 at his peak. Mm-hmm. Look, before that, it wasn't the super crazy time. So even in 2018, you could pick up a Cat rookie for $600. I kind of feel like he's the type of guy where his prices are much lower than his talent, but realistically, it doesn't mean that's someone you should go out and purchase, because I think obviously the position that he plays isn't fantastic for the hobby. And also the market that he was in was Minnesota. So then, there wasn't a lot going on. But if you look at the last 6 months, he's up 28%. And in the last 6 months, he actually sold up to 350. Yeah. If you look at the last 3 months, which is probably, it has less higher outlier sales in it. He's still up 15%. So he's gone from 163, and the last sale of that was 240. So he's currently trading at 240. Could he get back to 350, which he was, say, 3 months ago? I think 100%. There's no reason that he couldn't. I think the Knicks are going to have a nice deep playoff run. And kind of interestingly, too, I think if they don't do well this year, there's still enough youth on that team in terms of, it's not like the Golden State Warriors where they're sort of age-wise, maxed out. I think next year they could still keep building, on top of this program and go back. I think the only risk for me is like Coach Thibs just tends to burn people out. So it's like Mikal Bridges is the Iron Man, but at some point Thibs is going to break this dude down, same as Jalen Brunson. There was a post going around on social media this week about how many minutes that the starting lineup of the Knicks has been playing together. It's like the top 7 lineups from the NBA in terms of minutes played, 5 or 6 of them was the Knicks. So I think, at some point they're going to get some injuries, and that will probably slow down a little bit. And I'd probably put Cat into that same equation too. Like Thibs doesn't believe in load management and resting players and, keeping their minutes down. Like, so
yeah,
I think that's a risk, but at the same time, no, I think there's a lot of optimism to be had for Cat. particularly if you're buying into him, say 6 months ago, or even if you're buying into him now. So I think
Yeah.
that's my very long-winded answer on Cat.
Yeah, we comment in there. Cat rookie cards might not sort of be the go. Like, I don't think Knicks fans might be interested in acquiring Minnesota cards. So maybe Cat Knicks stuff when it comes out. Inserts. Is it going to be a Cat Kaboom
No,
this year?
I'm going to push back on that. I don't think that's true because if you look at that, the only thing that's changed realistically in the last 6 months is his location, right? So, like, clearly, do you know what I mean? Like, clearly, that's not how the market is playing out. I think people are like looking at this guy, looking at his talent, and it's possible he's going to be an all-star again this year. So,
There's a chance. There's a high chance.
yeah.
Yep, for sure.
All right, let's talk about Miles McBride. This is a little bit more of a up my alley in terms of prospecting on someone, ultra low end here. So there's actually some good sales on this guy and a pretty big range of sales. So Immaculate RPA, it's sold for $83 USD. I'll just round that up very slightly. A Green Prism rookie card sold for $3.25. But this is the one that's actually caught my attention the most. So the Fast Break Green 1 out of 5 that sold for $250 USD. So I kind of put sales like that, anything over than $100 for a prospect, I think is meaning that there's a lot of optimism in that space for that kid. And there are some crazy Knicks fans out there. I think this kid's got a lot of juice actually, and I think he's got a bit of talent. So it's just more about him getting spots in the rotation, and that's a tough rotation to crack. Like realistically, Jalen Brunson's not going anywhere. So that's what probably leads me to not buying into this guy heavily. I think it's fine to have 1 or 2 cards of this guy, but I wouldn't be putting my life savings into it. Yeah.
I feel like there's a secondary segment that comes to my mind. What are you actually prospecting on when you prospect on a player? As in, are you hoping they become a top 100 player of all time? What is the reason you prospect?
I think it depends on obviously the price of the card.
Yeah.
And then also too of, where you think that player is going to end up. And that's probably why I'm a little bit stuck on McBride. It's like, I don't really see him becoming a starter. I don't particularly see him becoming an all-star or an all-NBA player. So for me, he's a little bit limited. And particularly in the current situation, like Brunson is really the engine that drives that team. So that for me is really limiting for other point guards.
Yeah.
To answer your question, it's also about price point and where you sort of see that person ending up at some point. So the one for me is like my big sort of prospect in my mind at the moment is Herb Jones. He's injured at the moment, so it becomes very tricky. But I was like, look, he's already got one side of the court covered. He's an all NBA defender already. And offensively, I'm like, he's not that far away from being, a good enough player that he'll earn 35 minutes a game. And then could he then become an all-star, based off that? That's what I was sort of prospecting on. Obviously, it's not gone the way I was hoping it was going to go. But at the same time, I'm still not giving up hope on him. I think for the price he's currently at, I think that's a really good price. So that's some of the things that I sort of factor in when I'm prospecting. Yeah.
But I suppose my question in that is, if you're wanting him obviously to improve, but where's that ceiling? Where does Herb Jones sit at the picnic area at the bottom of Mount Rushmore? Like, how far up the mountain is he going to climb?
Oh, in terms of all time, no, definitely not. But I think he has potential to be an all-star. I think that would be his high end. Yeah. So
I'm trying to gauge, what the best case scenario looks like.
I think he could be a top 30 NBA player.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's because I think it's just, where do I see, and you see someone, who was it? Cam Thomas, when he came out and dropped 50 or whatever it was. The first I put back-to-back 40-point games up, you're like, okay, where's this guy's ceiling? Is he going to be a new scoring king? Is he a flash in the pan that I'm never going to see again?
No, he's going to be a 15-year pro, and he'll be someone like Jamal Crawford, who just comes off the bench and can do
and always
20
just
points.
Hits points. Yeah.
But I think the issue with him is obviously playmaking. He's not someone you can build an offense around. I think he's just like a gunner, and defensively, he's no Herb Jones. Let's just put it that way. Yeah.
Nice way. Nice.
Yeah.
We got a couple of questions.
Yeah. Let's go to the chat.
First one from Surly Sports Cards. Who's an underrated player you think deserves more shine in the collecting world?
Would you like to answer this first?
Who do I think deserves a little more shine? That's an interesting one. I think Cade Cunningham, but
Okay, let's talk about
still,
Cade.
We've
very
covered
happy.
Cade. We've covered Cade a lot recently, but I think Cade is a ready to take a step up.
Yeah. No, I think that's fine. I think, like, if that's what you think, that's what you think. And I think it's really good to talk about him because we should be giving more love to the Pistons. I think the Pistons this year have been really good. And obviously, they're going to make the playoffs this year. Like, statistically, like, their odds of not making the playoffs is excellent this year.
Yeah.
All right. So, really quickly, the last 3 months, he's up 17%, which is fantastic. He had a recent sale of 450. His most recent sale was 376. So, yeah, he's made a huge comeback because I think in the last 2 years he was down to $200. So he was like way down from where he's currently sitting at.
Yeah.
Basically, yeah. If you had bought him at that $200 mark, you've just doubled your money. That's the best way to say it. Alrighty. So I think the obvious one really for us to talk about is SGA, but I think that's a little bit sort of too obvious.
In the chat, we've James Gregory said Marvin Williams.
I'm not even sure James realized that Marvin Williams has retired, quite a number of years ago. But, that's okay. I think the other obvious one, which we've spoken about, multiple times, is Tyrese Maxey. I think we can't really go past,
Maxey.
without saying that. Another one that we spoke about recently, which is he's never going to get hobby love, but is Norman Powell. I think he's become, a fantastic NBA player who I definitely respect. And I think the last one, which is the one I'm going to focus on now, is Donovan Mitchell, because I think the problem with Donovan Mitchell was that he was in a very difficult situation being Utah in terms of, market size. He was also up against the likes of Jason Tatum. And I think if you sort of zoom back to 2017, which is the rookie class that he came out of, almost all of the hobby love went to Tatum. And then, of course, the influences pushed De'Aaron Fox during that time period too. But then, like, realistically, what's happened with Donovan Mitchell is, he was traded out of a situation that was probably the best for him. Yeah. And he's landed now in a situation where he's playing on the best team in the league. So I probably think using that sort of mindset alone, that's where I'm kind of like, should actually we be taking a tougher look at Donovan Mitchell and saying, does this dude have legs? Because about 12 or 18 months ago, I went through a period. I was like, you could pick up Donovan Mitchell PSA 10s for nothing, just for like 30 or 40 USD. And so I was just picking them up. I would say casually. Like, I don't have a huge war chest of Donovan Mitchell, but, I've got enough that I'm kind of like, I didn't see this happening. Like, there's no way in my wildest dreams would I have said the Cavaliers would be the best team in the league, halfway through the season. Like, I'm just being honest about it. I never would have expected that, but I think it's really positive. So if you zoom back to the last 2 years, this is on his silver PSA 10. Population in this is 620. He's down 22% on the last 2 years. But let's zoom into the last year. He's up 32%.
Yep.
The last 6 months, he's up 63%. And the last 3 months, he's up 75%. So, he's had enormous growth this season. And which probably in some ways doesn't answer Surly Sports Cards question, because that kind of means he's not the most underrated anymore if he's just gone up 75% in the last 3 months.
I've got one that I think answers the question, and he will never get enough shine. Domantas Sabonis.
Look, I think he's a really good player, but I also understand why people don't think he's collectible. So, okay, I'll tell you what. You try and convince me why I should be buying Domantas Sabonis.
I think he deserves more shine because of his ability as a basketballer. But
yeah,
I mean, I can go one step further and give you another player that I don't think gets enough shine. His name's Nikola Jokic.
Sure.
But do you know what I mean? Like, I don't think... I think even though he is now in the spotlight, I still don't think what he is doing and what he's capable of reflects his hobby pricing. But
Look, I think he's pretty tough because personality-wise, I think he's a lovely man. You
Yeah.
know, he's an effervescent guy, but he's not that engaging with the media. Like, I think his interviews are quite short and sweet, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
Nice guy, but, whatever.
But no, I'm not
I
going to
think
try and convince you to buy Domantas Sabonis.
the position that he plays is, we know it's very tough in the hobby. And then I think, even if you look at the Sacramento Kings, you actually might make the argument that he's the second most important hobby player on that team behind Fox.
Yeah.
And I could be
Fair.
wrong about that, and of course I'm biased, but that's just on his team alone, let alone when you start passing that out to 30 teams. So I think that's my sort of argument in that space.
Yeah.
Why don't we have our second break and then we'll come back, because we've got a few more players
The questions, yeah, we've got some players
that people want to talk about.
Yeah.
And Eamon Thompson is someone that we should definitely talk about, and I've had some PMs about that. So why don't we do that when we come back? Alrighty. Thank you to Fast Break Trading Cards for your ongoing support. We really appreciate everything that you do for us. The web address is fastbreaktradingcards, all one word.com, not au, just straight.com. Also check them out at 75 Tulip Street in Cheltenham, Fridays 12 till 6, Saturday 9 till 5, Sunday 10 till 4. They have a fantastic shop set up there for you. They've got higher end cards in their cabinets, lower end cards in the boxes there's some nice little pickups that you can fossick through there and get some stuff there. They've got Pokemon, they have got Disney Lorcana, One Piece, Star Wars, Fanatics Authentic Memorabilia. They've also got a grading service with the Hobby AU, if I'm saying that correctly, PSA, BGS. They do gift cards. They also do pre-orders for you. Look, it's a hobby shop that was made by hobbyists for the consumer. I think that's the best way and the biggest compliment that I can give their shop. Definitely check them out. Thank you so much to Fast Break Trading Cards for your ongoing support. Alrighty, let's come in hot.
Come in hot.
Let's do some listener questions.
I've got a few in here.
All right, you lead me off, Ad.
All right. I suppose I shouldn't go back to back with Surly Sports Cards, so we'll go with one from Al. What are your thoughts on the price of NT when there are no top rookie signatures in it?
So actually, the price this year has been pretty level. It hasn't spiked that hard.
Is that because of the lack of signatures? Certain signatures?
I think the signatures has definitely got something to do with it. But the other thing they've done too, which is actually, this is a really nice segue because I wanted to talk to you about this at some point. They've also done like an international release of NT this year. So I think, people can get their hands on it at a lower price point. And so there's obviously still really nice cards in the, the traditional, the hobby NT, but at the same time, Breakers are also doing the international NT, which sort of, takes the attention away from the other NT a little bit. So
yeah,
I actually think them doing that, when I say them, Panini doing that, it's really done themselves a disservice in terms of, the resale of it. But I suppose at the same time, what do they care about the resale? They don't make money out of that, do they? What they make money out of is increasing the print run on something.
Yeah.
And I think if I'm being pragmatic about this conversation, they're really milking the last 12 to 24 months of their licenses here. And that's all this is about.
Would you expect anything else? Like if you were in that situation and you knew you're losing the license, wouldn't you just...
No, I didn't expect them to do an NT international. Like if they do a flawless... No, like I think NT in my mind is a little bit sacred. It's in the same sentence as flawless. It has...
I think that shows that it's no longer sacred because they're losing the license. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, so the cards that are sacred for me in NT is the vertical RPA. Like that is,
Well, the RPs, you mean?
That's, a card that's numbered to 99.
Yeah.
Is something that's so collected and people, value.
Sure.
And it's this really weird paradigm too, where people value the one that's to 99 more than the one that's to 10 and to 25. Like it's just that card that everybody wants. So to make an international product out of that, it's just a little bit surprising. Did Fanatics
ruin it? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
With the autographs, the fact that you can't get the top rookies in this sacred card, because of nonsense with contracts and who can sign what.
Yeah, and
Like,
so
I
last
still
year when
think
we
Panini should have trademarked the no autograph thing from the next day autos and
I'm
really doubled down on that.
I'm kind of glad that no auto card is not happening anymore. I think that's just appalling, and I'm sort of
It
glad
makes
they've
me.
just
I want to
moved
get
on.
one now that they're not doing it again. It makes it rare, collectible. There'll be demand. It's a piece
I
of
don't know.
history,
Does
just like
does
the
anyone
Olympic
care?
cards.
I'm not. Yeah. But yeah, so look, one thing I will actually make a comment on, again, this is a really good segue. So the last time we spoke, and this is last year, we spoke about NT, we are like, oh, there's now stickers in NT. But actually that's not true. So if you look back at the last 5, years of NT, there's always been stickers in it. So that's actually something that's a little bit, I feel like we need to correct the narrative on that. It hasn't just been the last couple of years they've
Yeah,
started to put stickers into it. So like
it's
even, yeah,
it's dwindled. Yeah,
yeah. So
it's not what it used to be. Definitely.
look, I actually think they've done a reasonable job of rebounding out of this. So I think they've
Mm.
actually said, look, what can we do to this product to make it appealing? And so they put Logomans into NT this year, which, people love, people collect. They've made the Logomans to 5. So, from my perspective, look, I think it does depreciate the overall top value of the cards because there isn't that, ultra sort of high end chase card in this anymore. But at the same time, look, I could be wrong about this. I haven't actually checked the resale on it, but I actually think that means it's going to be possible to get Logomans out of NT for an average type of collector on the secondary market. I don't think those cards are going to be thousands of dollars. I think they're going to be sub $1,000
Yeah.
for some of them. I think the
Yeah, for
Wembies
sure.
are going to be really expensive, but
Yeah.
maybe I could get a Fox one for sub 1,000. Maybe I could get a veteran Cade Cunningham for 1,000. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I think,
Yeah.
and that is somewhat appealing. If they are going to
Mm.
blow this product out, increase the
Yep.
print run. That's kind of a positive thing
Well,
for
that
me.
goes back to the Carl Anthony Towns in Knicks. Is there a chance for some value for your other players?
Yeah,
It does. It takes
definitely.
away the rookie focus. Yeah.
I think people will collect those Logomans. I think
Mm-hmm.
I think that was a really good move by them.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit interested to see if they're game worn or not, or game used, or if it's just like not associated. So they've just like rolled off, a
If they
million
just start,
patches here.
but if they start rolling off patches that aren't game worn and stuff like that, where's the actual? If they're stickers and they're not even game worn jerseys, what's the point?
Look, I think generally NT is the quality on the cards is higher. I know there's always you can get some corner edges with that, but I do think the aesthetics of NT is really good.
Yeah.
I still think that the aesthetics of this year product is really good, and I think holding those NT cards in your hand, like that is different to holding a Donruss card. So
Yep.
I still think that aesthetics and collectability is there. I know what you're saying, and I do agree with it, but at the same time, I don't think they've destroyed the product.
Yeah.
And the price has stayed down too. So for me, it's not all doom and gloom.
Fair.
There's been some nice cards coming out of it, and not all of it's
Oh,
stickers.
look, it's
by the
not
way,
doom and
too.
gloom. I just don't think it's the
It's not the premier product
it's
anymore.
it's not the sacred ground it once used to be. It's definitely
100%.
it's definitely a mere mortal in the hobby.
Yeah, definitely.
Look, I don't know if we can. We don't want to. We've got a lot of questions. Well, a few questions now. I'll go back to the one quickly. Someone on the path to being a top 75 100 player. I'm going to double back on my Cade Cunningham. I reckon he's definitely going to be on the way. He has a future.
To a top 100 player?
To a top 100 player.
Okay.
And then I'll take the easy way out as well and say Wemby. That guy is a freak of nature.
As in he's underrated?
No. Just the question is someone on the path to being a top 75/100 player.
Oh, who is going to be a top
Yeah,
75
yeah.
player? Yeah, right.
And I
Yeah,
don't
so
mean
this is
current
higher end
top
prospecting, isn't
100.
it?
I mean, well, that was Surly's question. Top 75/100 player. And
Sure. Okay.
I don't know if the question is of all time because
Yep.
my thing is I think Wemby can be in the top 100 of all time.
I think his defensive metrics alone is almost enough to get him into that top 100 in addition to his insane offensive talents.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, if he's not top 20 all time, I think that's going to be actually a disappointment for him. I think you can really push this guy envelope. Look, I think Cade to be top 100 all time, that's going to be really tough.
I just
So
feel like Cade's gonna now that he started to break out, I'm like his ceiling is gonna be really high. I'm just seeing a few triple doubles. His actual bag of tricks is deeper than I thought it was,
yeah, Cade's good.
and I now see the number one pick in him, if that
Yeah,
makes sense.
yeah, Cade is really good, man.
All right, so
Let's do
Eamon Thompson.
let's do Eamon Thompson because I think this is kind of a fun one. And in terms of us talking about prospects and stuff like that, look, I'm not in love with Eamon Thompson. I'm just going to put that out there, really quickly. There's two Thompson brothers, AMEN. He plays for Houston. If that
Yeah,
helps
Azure
anyone at home.
is the other one. Plays for Detroit. Is it Detroit? Is the other brother?
God, now you're really testing my NBA name knowledge. Anyway, back to Eamon Thompson. Look, I think if you're
Awesome.
buying into this guy, I think that's totally fine. My only thing with him is I would say just be a little bit cautious because let's just focus on the Houston Rockets alone. I actually don't think he's top 3 on the Houston Rockets in terms of prospects. So I'm going to choose, Azure. Thanks, Sean. You're right. Yeah. So I'm going to just go out to limb and say actually Şengün is number 1 hobby-wise for the Houston Rockets and second is Jalen Green. And actually, I think for a little while, when Jalen Green first came into the NBA, I was like, this guy's overpriced. Then his prices went down, and I was actually worried, is this guy going to fall off the face of the earth? But the Houston Rockets this year are good. Like, not just a little bit good. They're a genuinely good NBA team. They're well coached. They're well organized. They're a good defensive team. They're young. And actually, a lot of their offensive firepower is actually built around Jalen Green. And so there's a lot of like things in my head. I'm kind of like, it makes me actually wonder if, as far as Houston's going to go, is directly tied to Jalen Green's offensive potential.
Fair.
And so when I think about that, that's what makes me a little bit reluctant to sort of go, there's Eamon Thompson. So,
I think there's a point about him in the chat that I agree with, and I don't. Yeah.
Hit it. Go.
So Sean Alloway said Eamon will be the main person off the table if the Rockets push for a trade point for a scoring star. So a D Fox or a D Booker. Do you know what I mean? Like, he'll be the trade piece.
Well, I think what he's saying when he says off the table, I think he means
they'll
piece
hold
that
him.
Yeah,
they'll trade the Jalen Green. Do you know what I mean? Like, who are they?
Yeah, I actually think
I'd put him
I get what you're saying.
I would put him on the table, but because he's undervalued, you'd keep him off the table, get rid of the higher performing star to get the bigger star, and then bring him up.
Sure. Look, I think in terms of his contract value and all that type of stuff, like I get it. I really see the value there and how in terms of building a salary cap team, having Eamon Thompson makes you successful. Like I agree with that 100%. But I really think Jalen Green is going to be the star in that team if they sort of go to that next level. So, and also too, like, who would you trade Jalen Green for to take you to that next level above that? Like, actually, so Jimmy Butler is the guy that's on the table at the moment that you would mostly argue that is available in terms of a star. But I think trading Jalen Green for Jimmy Butler, that's the wrong thing to do because offensively, I don't think Jimmy Butler is actually better than Jalen Green. He's less of an athlete. Yeah. He's definitely a better defensive player, but then you have to factor in the age factor then too. Like Jalen Green is still, really young. And, I think that's the other thing that's exciting about Houston now. It's like, that team is really young and really talented. So
it's interesting about the trade questions because my big thought this season, and I think this season highlights it, I think it's been happening a lot recently, is the teams that are staying the course and not trading for the big star are growing and becoming better teams.
Yeah, definitely that continuity of teams. So like Cleveland is like the 101 team on that, isn't it?
The Thunder.
Like, yeah.
It's
So let's do some prices on Eamon Thompson. Look, I think if you're buying this guy at the moment, I think it's totally fine. Green Prism rookie card for $1.78. A Spectra patch to $149. That's a 2-color Spectra patch for $15.50. A Silver Select rookie card for 99 cents.
Yeah.
A Monopoly card for 99 cents. Like, look, I think if you're buying into this guy, I think that's fun. I think that's exciting. Even if he bottoms out to nothing You're not going to lose any sleep over it. You can collect this kid. You can watch him on League Pass. Like the Houston Rockets are a League Pass team at the moment that you should be watching. Look, that's totally fine. Look, I think just for me, the narrative in my head is like, should you actually be buying up Jalen Green at the moment? I actually think that's almost like a more fun conversation because, could he be exploding out into that next sort of superstar, level? So I think that's what's kind of more on my mind when I think about the Houston Rockets. Yeah. And then we got to go to another break.
Not about
Sorry.
Dylan Brooks? You're not thinking
Fucking
Dylan
hate
Brooks
Dylan
when
Brooks. I really hate that guy. I know you're trying to set me up here to
I have no love, no hobby love, no actual out of the hobby, no nothing. No, Dylan Brooks can disappear into the void.
US Sports Cards Australia is our third and final sponsorship for today's show. So thank you so much to Ross and Michael at US Sports Cards Australia for your undying love and commitment to me over the years. I think that's the best way to say it. USSportsCardsAustralia.com.au have breaks, wrestling, Major League Baseball, NHL, pop culture, soccer, as in football, FUTBUL. I think that's how they spell it in America. Ross has also been working diligently on Check Out My Cards Australia. He's now got a seller login page, a submission form, and also if you want to go on and buy the cards, just click on the three little noodles at the top left-hand side, go to the singles category. Ross has gone all OCD and broken everything down. NHL, MLB, NBA, NFL, soccer, TCG, UFC, pop culture, WWE, racing, and then it's all into year and also then to the product type. So Ross, congratulations on manifesting your OCD into a very positive thing. If you're looking for some toys, we've also got some water pistols up for sale on there too. So thank you so much, guys, for your ongoing support. Alrighty, Adam, we're back. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I think this has been fun.
It has.
This has been a lot of fun.
It has, yeah. Did we answer all the questions out of the live chat from before?
So I've got. I'll give you some of the highlights here because there's been back and forth. But
Yeah.
I've got Surly Sports Cars. Been watching some Cavs lately, and Evan Mobley is pretty damn good.
Yeah, Mobley's good.
So maybe a bit of a chat on Mobley. The other one was James Gregory. How is Derrick Rose rookies going now that he's retired? So maybe a quick check-in on D Rose.
Yeah, we can do Derrick Rose.
And then, just people clarifying. Or the other Thompson brother plays for the Pistons.
Yeah.
And then Sean did say if Jimmy Butler goes to the Rockets, he'll eat his whole Rockets PC.
Yeah, I mean...
I think that the headline there would be, Houston, we have a problem. Why would you crash the rocket ship by sending Jimmy Buckets there? I'm sorry, but...
I actually could see the head coach, being in on that.
Like, trying to get him?
Yeah.
Really?
I kind of see how those, two personalities are, crazy competitors, a bit insane in terms of their, But, it's what would you give up for it? And I think if you gave up Jalen Green, that would be too much. But
And your supporters, obviously, I think. You're giving up your fan base. I don't know. I don't think they've been supportive of it. Young growing team. I think it's great. But they're the two main questions out of the chat.
All right, well, let's talk Derrick Rose. So 2008 Topps Chrome Derrick Rose, card number 181. So let's talk about the refractor. This is actually kind of a cool one to talk about because the population on the PSA 10 on this is just 11.
Okay.
And so we actually need to go to the all-time sales data on this because actually these get sold very, very infrequently. In fact, we can recap every single sale ever on this. That's how many sales of it there's been. So one sold for $32 in 2009. Another one sold for $148 in 2012. Then between 2012 and 2021, there's no sales data. That doesn't mean there's no sales of it, but there's no sales data there. And it sold for $1,300. Obviously, this is peak COVID time we're now talking about. And the most recent sale was very recently, and that sold for $574.
In October,
look, at $574 for an MVP rookie card with a population of 11 on it, I actually think that's a really good buy.
It's an interesting one.
And probably what we should do now is also look at the BGS. There's actually no BGS data on this one, so
Well, the next one down is there's a little bit more on the 9, PSA 9.
oh yeah, you're right. There's a lot more sales data.
Pop
You want to
82.
run through that?
There's 30 sales that are going from like $18. Most recent is $200, which was on the 7th of January this year. So that may have sparked like a recent couple of sales around the $200 mark for PSA 9.
Yeah, it looks like they were sort of floating between $80 and $175. And then, so to answer James's question specifically, yes, there has been a bit more activity on this card.
Yeah.
Since his retirement thing, but I'd probably say for me the big thing about Derrick Rose is that his character recovered after that legal case that he had, because I really think that there was a little bit of a cloud hanging over his head. Yeah. So in terms of a redemption story and someone sort of getting their life and their act back together, I think that's a good one on that. I do actually think this is an interesting one for us to keep in mind for future shows in terms of comps ad. It's like, if this is a former MVP of the league with a low population like this, and this is what his current prices are, do you almost use that as like a measuring stick for, say...
I think his career was very different to the trajectory. Like, early MVP, but then nothing really... Do you know, like the fall from grace, you'd call it?
Yeah, for sure. So where I'm going to with this is like Tyrese Halliburton or Cade Cunningham. Like, Halliburton hasn't had an MVP, and neither has Cade Cunningham, but still their cards are like a lot more expensive than what you're paying for a Derrick Rose. And so, do you know where I'm sort of going with this? It's like,
well, you got someone that's won an MVP and then never won again. You got Russell Westbrook. Is he a comparison?
Yeah, Westbrook is funny. There's like, I would say the population on Westbrook stuff is probably about the same as Rose, though it's it's super low. So actually, Halliburton is down, man. So the last sale on Halliburton's $159 for a silver PSA 10. Pop on that's $422. So that's actually relatively comparable, isn't it, to a Rose? But using that metric, I'd probably prefer to have a Rose then. Oh, it's a PSA 9 though, isn't it?
Right. 2008 Topps Chrome Russell Westbrook, Pop 4.
Yeah.
Last sold $1,920.
Yeah. I think the big thing on that's the population though, isn't it?
Yeah, probably. Pop 4 on that. Yeah. Yeah. Last sold November 2024, so it's not... Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting.
All right. Sean is vomiting about my comments about the Houston Rockets before. Then he went on to say, that's a good price just to have, even if you never sold a Derrick Rose rookie, just having your collection would be so damn cool. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
I think there's nothing wrong with sitting something like that in your collection. And I also think too, we talk about the long-term hold on, very particular cards. I think if you're picking up something like that, that's, a former MVP of the league is ultra low pop, it's pretty unlikely that the population on that is going to spike up to 200 or 1,000. It's never going to get to 1,000, but even say 100 or 200.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's like it's a nice little long-term hold. Surly Sports Cards, Hallie spent the off-season reading his own press and he's suffering from this season. Yeah, look, I mean, is Halliburton suffering this year? Or
I think he's just enjoying the bus ride just like he did at the Olympics.
Or is this some of the shine come off, a little bit of the Halliburton, like, hype train that people are on? I actually don't think he's playing badly this year.
I think Indiana are just going under the radar. You watch. They could just be a force to be reckoned with come the off season.
Yeah, maybe.
Who knows?
Alrighty, so we did a segment a while back called The Sooks of the NBA. Al Keynes has answered this one. He said Jimmy Butler, Ben Simmons, James Harden, and Joel Embiid. I think for me, the reason why I put Embiid up as the picture on that post is because Embiid is just my most hated sook at the moment. I think someone else as an honorable mention has got to be Luka. That's my big one too.
Here's the new LeBron wins, yeah.
Like, Ben Simmons shouldn't get a mention. The guy barely plays anymore. And does he sook that much? I mean, he more sooks in terms of like getting himself onto the court and getting his act together.
That's true.
So listeners in the chat, who do you think your biggest sooks are in this? in this league. And Adam, who do you think
Oh, look, I'd say
you're
Luka.
most?
Luka for sure.
At least give me three, because I feel like Luka's just easy pickings for you.
Luka, and then Luka Senior, LeBron James,
Yeah.
and then
I thought Luka Senior was James Harden though.
maybe they're the three.
Okay.
But LeBron is, come on, you've got to say, since that J.R. Smith moment, I think that meme of LeBron just like
Hang
he
on a
does
second.
that to the refs all the time.
I'll defend LeBron on that. If you've got a teammate who's a professional athlete who's dribbling literally the opposite end of what they should have been, when they should have been getting up a shot instead of milking the clock down, like he deserved that the look that he got. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh no, I was gonna say is Giannis becoming a sook, but not really. I feel like those big players that don't get calls because they're physical.
Yeah.
They don't deserve sook status. Because I think they are refereed slightly differently.
Yeah, I think the stars get more leeway than anyone else should get.
But there's also players that are very physical and get in there and get smacked around, but because they're stronger, they need to be fouled harder for anything to be called.
That was the Shaq argument, wasn't it? Though, that guy took an insane amount of punishment.
Embiid's just a sook, yeah.
Yeah. Alrighty, so Sean Alloway, Luka for sure. He's so frustrating to watch. Want to call every play. Yeah, 100%. He does, doesn't he?
Yeah.
If he could get a foul drawn every play, he'd be very happy with that outcome, wouldn't he?
Yeah. Yeah.
Alrighty. Have we got time for one more quick thing, do you think, Ad?
Yeah, for sure.
Right.
Do we want to finish off with Evan Mobley, or is that too big a topic? Do we want to do that next week?
We could probably deep dive into a little bit more on that. This is a fun one.
Okay.
This is one I put up. This was the John Stockton autograph. Remember the players you idolized as a kid. Now you can own a piece of their legacy.
Is this
is a legit one
versus the troll post that we talked about
look,
last week?
I genuinely bought this card because I wanted it, not to actually troll people on sports cards nonsense. I think I loved John Stockton as a kid. I thought he was just a good basketball player. So who's your list to collect? Obviously, John Stockton, I've just spoke about that. Hakeem Olajuwon, I've got some really nice patch autographs of Hakeem. That was a really good one. And probably another one that actually is less so, but definitely on my hit list is Tim Duncan. I really want to get some patch autograph stuff of Duncan now that he's starting to come out into more products. But I've been looking at some of the resale on that stuff, and it is really, really high. So I'm kind of hoping that as more products come out, as more Timmy D stuff gets hit, it'll sort of even out a little bit, just because I definitely want to get my hands on some Duncan. So what about you, mate? What have you got on your hit list?
On my hit list, just expanding my Scottie Pippen stuff.
Yeah, you love your Scottie Pippen.
Loving the Scottie Pippen. Got a jersey for Christmas. Picked up, didn't get the Kobe, but that's one of those Raz. I got a Pippen in a Raz.
Huge shout out to your better half, by the way, too.
Yeah,
I think she didn't get enough recognition for that purchase. That was amazing.
Yeah, no, that was it was a quality pickup, and I don't mind going for a walk past the NBA store nowadays.
Yeah,
realizing how attentive she was to what I enjoyed. So I went on a Raz for a Kobe Soul of the Game the other day, but it was a top 3, and when 2 of the 3 players you're going into a Raz players you collect, Scotty being the other one. I think the top 3 was Kobe gets the first, second gets to pick between Rodman and Pippen, and third gets whichever card isn't chosen.
Did you win something?
I got the Scottie Pippen.
Oh, nice.
So,
cool.
Yeah.
So, do you know much of the history of that card? Do you want to explain that out to people?
No, I'm not a historian. I remember it was sought after.
So why don't we should do a segment on that too, and do a bit of a...
They've made a bit of a resurgence, deep dive into it. Yeah, maybe.
That's a fun one to look at, because the art in that is really cool.
Yes,
it's a fun insert. It's original.
It's very original.
Yeah,
and it's a hell of a set list too.
Yeah,
because we've got some greats. There's a Jordan. There's a Kobe. They're probably the biggest 2 in that set. There's a Shaq. There's a lot. Yeah.
any listener contributions to this one? And while we're waiting for the answers to come back, Surly Sports Cards, Embiid hasn't played in Denver since 2019. He's a sook. I mean, that's very targeted skipping games. But at the same time, too, I think Embiid, the number of games that he skips, I mean, it could be a coincidence he doesn't want to play against Jokic, or it could just be that he's load managing himself,
Is it low?
basically forever.
Is KD a low key sook?
I don't think so. I think KD just gets a lot more crap than what he deserves, to be honest.
I don't know. He started sooking when he created a bunch of burner accounts, and since then he's learned his lesson after a few trips around the league.
It's kind of fun that the fact that he's like an NBA star who has burner accounts to talk to people online, though. Like, I think that to me is the funniest storyline there.
He's gone from hero to villain, like crying in his MVP acceptance to being.
He's probably got like $500 million in his bank, but then he's sitting on Twitter like talking to some random troll.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Like yelling at kids on Fortnite.
Yeah. Sean Alloway, trying to move those Hakeem patch orders. I'm not trying to move them. I'm trying to collect them, Sean. I'm sorry. Thank you for the offer to try and purchase some, but I'm definitely not trying to offload. Those Hakeem ones are staying with me.
What about yourself? Do you have any players any things you're looking to add to this year?
In terms of my childhood PC, no. I feel like I touched on those, the Hakeem, the John Stockton. I'm pretty happy with that.
Yeah.
Tim Duncan is definitely on my hit list, but I think this year is hopefully going to be Nikola Jokic rookie.
Yeah.
That's going to be the one I'm hopefully going to add to my collection. That's because I've been saying that for the last 6 months, I feel like. So
I think I need to double down on my Steph Curry.
Actually,
thoughts.
Did I mention this to you? I've been putting in comp offers and even above comp offers, and they've been knocked back. So I think at the moment, people are actually holding out to sell much higher, which sort of makes me think that he's trending upwards and people still think he's got a lot more legs into it. Like,
given normally, the going rate is 80% on comps, I would agree.
Yeah, well, I suppose on eBay you need to make a comp offer because you're going to lose 20%, to eBay. So that's that sort of 80% offer, isn't it? But
yeah,
even above comps, and then the offers are still being knocked back, which is kind of a good hobby take, really, isn't it, of how popular he is at the moment. Adam, I say we cut this off. I think I've had a really lovely afternoon. Thank you, everybody who's been in the chat today. Sean, Big Al, Surly Sports Cards, James Gregory.
It's good to
Thank
see
you
everybody.
so much. We hope that you've had a good afternoon. Anyone else that's currently live with us who hasn't been commenting, thank you so much for tuning in. Guys, we're really close to that 150. So if you do want to jump onto our YouTube and subscribe to us, we're going to be giving away a box at 150. It'll be everybody who's subscribed randomized.
What year box is that, by the way?
I think it's 21, 22 or 22, 23. One of the two.
Nice. And yeah, I mean, you don't.
But
have
the
to
picture that's online is the actual box, is what it is. Sorry to answer your question. Yeah, that's actually the right box.
I would be, get friends to subscribe. Like, get somebody in your family to subscribe.
That's right. Yeah.
Get us over that 150 so you can, so you're all in the draw. Why not? But yeah, this isn't our normal broadcast time. It's nice to see everybody on a Sunday afternoon for a quick chat, but normally we're up around about 8 p.m. Sundays, Eastern Australian time, Australian Eastern Standard Time, or Daylight Savings Time, whatever you call it. Yeah. But looking forward to seeing you all online and hopefully giving away that box